The world is changing, and nowhere is this more evident than at its poles. The Arctic and Antarctic, once frozen wastelands, are rapidly transforming due to the relentless advance of global warming. As temperatures rise and ice melts at an alarming rate, these remote regions are emerging as new frontiers for geopolitical competition. What were once inaccessible expanses of ice and snow are now becoming potential battlegrounds for resources, shipping routes, and military dominance. The melting ice caps are not merely an environmental concern but a geopolitical game-changer. They are opening up new possibilities and challenges, forcing nations to reassess their strategic interests and jostle for position in a rapidly evolving global order. The Arctic, in particular, is witnessing an unprecedented military buildup as nations recognize its strategic importance in a world reshaped by climate change. This transformation from frozen wastelands to strategic hotspots is the defining geopolitical narrative of our time. It is a story of competition, cooperation, and the urgent need for international collaboration in the face of a changing planet. As the ice melts, the world watches, holding its breath as the Arctic and Antarctic become the new arenas for global power plays. The Arctic, once desolate, is now a geopolitical chess game. Melting ice reveals untapped resources, sparking a scramble among nations. New shipping routes like the Northern Sea Route cut transit times and costs. The Arctic's strategic importance extends to military operations and tensions. The Arctic is now a hotbed of geopolitical activity with growing significance. No country is better positioned to capitalize on the Arctic's transformation than Russia. With its vast Arctic coastline, extensive icebreaker fleet, and long history of operating in extreme conditions, Russia views the Arctic as its own backyard and is determined to assert its dominance in the region. Russia's Arctic strategy is multifaceted, encompassing military, economic, and scientific initiatives. The country has embarked on a major military buildup in the Arctic, reopening and modernizing Cold War-era bases, deploying advanced weapon systems, and conducting large-scale military exercises to showcase its capabilities. At the heart of Russia's Arctic ambitions is its desire to control the Northern Sea Route. Russia sees the Northern Sea Route as a key economic artery, and is investing heavily in infrastructure and icebreaker capacity to ensure its year-round navigability. By controlling the Northern Sea Route, Russia aims to become a major player in global shipping and reap the economic benefits of increased Arctic trade. Russia's assertiveness in the Arctic has raised concerns among other Arctic nations, particularly those in NATO. The potential for conflict in the region remains low, but the risk of miscalculation and escalation cannot be ignored. Russia's actions in the Arctic are a clear indication of its determination to be a leading player in the new geopolitical landscape of the Arctic. While Russia has stolen a march on its rivals in the Arctic, the United States and its NATO allies are scrambling to catch up. Recognizing the growing strategic importance of the region, they are taking steps to bolster their presence and counter Russia's growing influence. The United States, despite being an Arctic nation with a long history of involvement in the region, has lagged behind Russia in terms of Arctic capabilities. The United States has a limited icebreaker fleet, aging infrastructure, and a less developed Arctic strategy compared to its Russian counterpart. To address these shortcomings, the United States has announced plans to invest in new icebreakers, enhance its military presence in Alaska, and increase cooperation with Arctic allies. However, these efforts are still in their early stages and will take years to fully materialize, leaving the United States playing catch-up in the Arctic for the foreseeable future. NATO, for its part, is also stepping up its Arctic engagement. Recognizing the potential for the region to become a flashpoint for tensions with Russia, NATO has conducted several military exercises in the Arctic, increased surveillance activities, and strengthened its presence in Norway, a key Arctic ally. China's Arctic ambitions, the dragon's northern gaze. While not an Arctic nation itself, China has declared itself a near-Arctic state and is increasingly asserting its interests in the region. China's Arctic ambitions are primarily driven by economic considerations, but they also have geopolitical implications that are difficult to ignore. China sees the Arctic as a potential source of resources, particularly oil and gas, which could help fuel its rapidly growing economy. China is also keen to capitalize on the opening of new shipping routes through the Arctic, which could significantly reduce transit times and costs for its exports to Europe. To advance its interests in the Arctic, China has invested heavily in scientific research, built icebreakers, and strengthened ties with Arctic nations, particularly Russia. China's growing presence in the Arctic has raised concerns among some Western nations, who worry that China's activities could have military implications and challenge the existing balance of power in the region. China's Arctic ambitions are still in their early stages, but its growing economic and technological might means that it cannot be ignored as a player in the Arctic. China's actions in the Arctic are a reminder that the geopolitical competition in the region extends beyond the traditional Arctic powers and is likely to become even more complex in the future. The Arctic Thaw, a new era of geopolitical competition. The Arctic is rapidly thawing, revealing untapped resources and new shipping routes. Nations are scrambling for these resources, with Russia leading the charge. The Northern Sea Route offers a shorter path between Asia and Europe. Russia views the Arctic as its backyard and is asserting dominance. The Arctic's transformation is a significant development of the 21st century. Securing the Northern Sea Route. Russia's Arctic ambitions focus on controlling the Northern Sea Route, a strategic waterway that could transform global shipping. This route offers a shorter path between Asia and Europe compared to the Suez or Panama canals. The Kremlin views it as crucial for revenue and projecting power. Russia has heavily invested in ports, icebreakers, and navigation systems. These efforts aim to make the route viable year-round. Western nations worry about Russia's dominance and potential restrictions. Russia insists the route is open to all and promotes cooperation. Despite assurances, Russia's military buildup suggests it will secure its interests. The Northern Sea Route remains a strategic priority for Russia. Section 3. The Kremlin's Arctic arsenal, icebreakers, bases, and submarines. To assert its dominance in the Arctic, Russia has been steadily building up its military capabilities in the region, deploying a formidable arsenal of icebreakers, military bases, and submarines. This military buildup is a clear indication of the Kremlin's determination to defend its interests in the Arctic and project power across the high north. Russia's icebreaker fleet is the largest and most powerful in the world, with over 40 vessels, including several nuclear-powered icebreakers capable of breaking through thick ice year-round. These icebreakers are essential for maintaining the navigability of the Northern Sea Route, conducting search and rescue operations, and supporting Russia's military presence in the Arctic. In addition to icebreakers, Russia has reopened and modernized several Soviet-era military bases in the Arctic, equipping them with advanced radar systems, air defense missiles, and other military hardware. These bases serve as logistical hubs for Russia's Arctic operations, providing support for its troops, aircraft, and warships. Russia's submarine fleet, a key element of its nuclear deterrent, is also active in the Arctic. The region's ice cover provides a natural shield for Russian submarines, making it difficult for NATO forces to track their movements. These submarines, armed with ballistic missiles capable of carrying nuclear warheads, pose a significant threat to NATO countries and enhance Russia's strategic leverage in the Arctic. Russia's Arctic military exercises. Russia regularly conducts large-scale military exercises in the Arctic, showcasing its ability to operate in extreme conditions. These exercises test Arctic warfare capabilities and demonstrate readiness to defend its interests. Vostok 2018 involved over 300,000 troops, the largest since the Cold War. These exercises serve as a deterrent and prepare forces for potential conflict in the high north. The Northern Fleet guardians of Russia's Arctic interests. The Northern Fleet, Russia's primary maritime force in the Arctic, plays a crucial role in safeguarding the country's interests in the region. Headquartered in Severomorsk on the Kola Peninsula, the Northern Fleet is responsible for protecting Russia's Arctic coastline, maintaining the security of the Northern Sea Route, and projecting power across the Arctic region. The Northern Fleet is one of Russia's most powerful fleets, equipped with a wide array of warships, submarines, aircraft, and coastal defense systems. Its inventory includes nuclear-powered battlecruisers, destroyers, frigates, submarines, landing ships, and support vessels, as well as a significant air wing with fighters, bombers, and helicopters. The Northern Fleet's primary mission is to deter potential aggression against Russia in the Arctic and ensure the security of its strategic interests, including the Northern Sea Route and its vast natural resources. The fleet also plays a vital role in conducting scientific research, supporting search and rescue operations, and maintaining Russia's presence in the Arctic. The Northern Fleet's capabilities have been steadily enhanced in recent years with the addition of new warships, submarines, and aircraft. This modernization program is part of Russia's broader military buildup in the Arctic, reflecting the Kremlin's growing focus on the region and its determination to maintain its military superiority there. Submerged and deadly Russia's Arctic submarine force. Beneath the icy waters of the Arctic, a silent but deadly force lurks: Russia's submarine fleet. The Arctic's ice cover provides a natural haven for Russian submarines, making it difficult for NATO forces to detect and track their movements. This strategic advantage makes Russian submarines a key element of the country's Arctic strategy. The Arctic's economic potential, resources, and shipping lanes. The Arctic's economic potential is vast, with an estimated 30% of the world's undiscovered natural gas reserves and 13% of its undiscovered oil reserves located within the Arctic Circle. These resources, combined with the region's rich fishing grounds and the potential for new shipping routes, have made the Arctic a focal point for global economic competition. The melting ice is making it increasingly feasible to access these resources, with several countries, including Russia, the United States, Canada, and Norway, exploring opportunities for oil and gas extraction in the Arctic. However, extracting resources in the Arctic is a complex and costly endeavor, requiring specialized technology and infrastructure to operate in the region's harsh environment. The opening of new shipping routes through the Arctic, such as the Northern Sea Route and the Northwest Passage, has the potential to revolutionize global trade, significantly reducing transit times and costs between Asia, Europe, and North America. However, these routes are still subject to ice conditions and require significant investment in infrastructure and ice-breaking capabilities to make them commercially viable year-round. The Arctic's economic potential is inextricably linked to its geopolitical significance. The competition for resources and control of shipping lanes is likely to intensify as the ice continues to melt, potentially leading to increased tensions and even conflict between Arctic nations. The Northern Sea Route, a maritime Silk Road for Russia. The Northern Sea Route, a key element of Moscow's Arctic strategy, offers a shorter route between Asia and Europe. Russia sees it as a maritime Silk Road, part of its Belt and Road Initiative. The Kremlin has invested heavily in developing this route, building new ports and icebreakers. Despite challenges, the Northern Sea Route could transform global trade, giving Russia a significant advantage. The Arctic is rapidly transforming from a frozen backwater into a geopolitical hotspot, with nations vying for resources, control of shipping lanes, and strategic advantage. The region's melting ice is opening up new possibilities and challenges, raising concerns about the potential for conflict and the need for international cooperation. The Arctic is already witnessing a military buildup, with Russia leading the charge, but other Arctic nations, including the United States, Canada, and Norway, also bolstering their military presence in the region. This militarization of the Arctic raises concerns about the risk of miscalculation and escalation, particularly in the context of heightened tensions between Russia and the West. However, the Arctic is not destined for conflict. There are encouraging signs of international cooperation in the region, with the Arctic Council, a forum for intergovernmental cooperation among the 8 Arctic states, playing a crucial role in promoting dialogue and addressing shared challenges. The future of the Arctic will depend on the choices that nations make today. If countries prioritize cooperation over competition, dialogue over confrontation, and sustainability over short-term gains, the Arctic can become a model for international cooperation and responsible development. However, if nations succumb to the temptations of a new Cold War, the Arctic could become a flashpoint for conflict, with potentially disastrous consequences for the region and the world. While Russia has established a formidable presence in the Arctic, the United States and its NATO allies are scrambling to catch up. They are taking steps to bolster their presence, but face an uphill battle against time and a determined adversary. The US has lagged behind Russia in terms of Arctic capabilities. This disparity has left the US vulnerable in a key geopolitical arena. NATO has also been slow to recognize the strategic shift towards the Arctic. Despite these challenges, the US and NATO are enhancing their Arctic capabilities, investing in new icebreakers, modernizing bases, and conducting joint exercises. One of the most glaring weaknesses in the U.S. Arctic strategy is its lack of adequate icebreaking capabilities. Icebreakers are essential for maintaining access to Arctic waters year-round, conducting research, supporting economic activities, and projecting military power in the region. The U.S. Coast Guard, responsible for icebreaking operations, currently operates only two functional icebreakers: the heavy icebreaker Polar Star, commissioned in 1976, and the medium icebreaker Healy, commissioned in 2000. The Polar Star, nearing the end of its service life, requires frequent and costly maintenance, while the Healy is primarily a research vessel with limited icebreaking capabilities. This limited icebreaker fleet puts the U.S. at a significant disadvantage compared to Russia, which boasts over 40 icebreakers, including several nuclear-powered vessels capable of breaking through thick ice year-round. This disparity in icebreaking capabilities restricts the U.S.'s ability to operate freely in the Arctic, conduct scientific research, and support its allies in the region. Recognizing the urgency of this situation, the U.S. Congress has authorized funding for new polar security cutters, heavy icebreakers intended to replace the aging Polar Star. However, the first of these new icebreakers is not expected to be operational until the late 2020s, leaving the U.S. Coast Guard to make do with its aging fleet in the meantime. Modernization efforts. The U.S. Coast Guard's Polar Security Cutter Program. The U.S. Coast Guard's Polar Security Cutter, or PSC program, represents a significant step towards addressing the U.S.'s icebreaker deficit and enhancing its Arctic capabilities. The PSC program aims to acquire at least 3 new heavy icebreakers, with the possibility of adding more vessels in the future. These new icebreakers will be larger, more capable, and technologically advanced than the aging Polar Star, enabling the U.S. Coast Guard to operate more effectively in the Arctic's challenging environment. The PSCs will be equipped with state-of-the-art navigation and communication systems, as well as scientific research capabilities, enhancing the U.S.'s ability to conduct research, map the Arctic seabed, and monitor environmental conditions. The PSC program, however, has faced delays and cost overruns, pushing back the delivery timeline for the new icebreakers. These delays are partly due to the complexity of designing and building heavy icebreakers, a specialized field with limited shipbuilding expertise in the United States. Despite these challenges, the PSC program remains a critical investment in U.S. Arctic strategy, providing the Coast Guard with the tools it needs to maintain a persistent presence in the region, support U.S. interests, and counter the growing influence of Russia and other Arctic nations. Strategic outposts, U.S. military bases in the Arctic. The U.S. is bolstering its Arctic presence by modernizing bases and deploying additional troops and equipment. These outposts serve as logistical hubs for U.S. military operations. Thule Air Base in Greenland plays a vital role in missile defense and space surveillance. Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson in Alaska is another key installation. These bases provide the U.S. with a strategic foothold in the high north. The Alaskan frontier, a key line of defense and projection. Alaska, America's northernmost state, is on the front lines of the geopolitical competition unfolding in the Arctic. With its vast coastline, strategic location, and abundance of natural resources, Alaska is both a key line of defense and a platform for power projection for the United States in the Arctic. The state's proximity to Russia, separated only by the narrow Bering Strait, makes it a critical area for monitoring Russian military activities in the Arctic. The U.S. military maintains a network of radar stations and other surveillance assets in Alaska to track Russian aircraft, ships, and submarines operating in the region. Alaska is also home to a significant portion of the U.S. military's Arctic-capable forces, including the U.S. Army's 11th Airborne Division, specially trained and equipped for cold-weather warfare. The division is tasked with defending Alaska from potential threats and conducting operations in the Arctic environment. The U.S. is investing in enhancing its military capabilities in Alaska, including upgrading infrastructure at existing bases, deploying additional troops and equipment, and conducting more frequent and realistic training exercises in the region. These efforts are aimed at ensuring that the U.S. military is prepared to deter, and if necessary, defeat any threats to U.S. interests in the Arctic. NATO's Arctic Awakening. A response to Russian assertiveness, NATO, the world's most powerful military alliance, has undergone an Arctic awakening in recent years, driven by growing concerns about Russia's assertive behavior in the region. While NATO's primary focus remains on collective defense in Europe, the alliance has recognized the need to adapt to the changing security environment in the Arctic and enhance its ability to operate in the high north. Russia's military buildup in the Arctic, its aggressive rhetoric, and its willingness to use military force to achieve its objectives have raised alarm bells within NATO. The alliance has responded by increasing its presence in the Arctic, conducting more frequent military exercises, and strengthening its partnerships with Arctic nations. NATO's Arctic strategy is based on the principles of deterrence, defense, and dialogue. The alliance seeks to deter potential aggression by maintaining a credible military presence in the region, demonstrating its resolve to defend its members' interests, and engaging in dialogue with Russia to manage tensions and prevent misunderstandings. NATO's Arctic engagement is still evolving, but the alliance's increased focus on the region is a clear indication that it recognizes the strategic importance of the Arctic and is prepared to play a more active role in shaping the security environment there. Norway, a linchpin of NATO's Arctic defense. Norway, a founding member of NATO, plays a pivotal role in the alliance's Arctic defense strategy. Situated on the northwestern edge of the Barents Sea, Norway shares a border with Russia in the high north and has a long history of cooperation and competition with its powerful neighbor. Norway possesses significant Arctic expertise, with a modern navy equipped for operations in icy waters, a well-trained army capable of conducting cold-weather warfare, and a sophisticated network of radar stations and other surveillance assets that monitor activities in the Barents Sea and the Norwegian Sea. Norway has been at the forefront of NATO's efforts to enhance its Arctic capabilities. The country regularly hosts NATO military exercises, provides logistical support for allied operations in the region, and shares its expertise on Arctic warfare and operating in extreme environments. Norway's commitment to NATO and its strategic location make it a linchpin of the alliance's Arctic defense posture. The country's ability to monitor Russian activities, provide early warning of potential threats, and host allied forces makes it an indispensable partner for NATO in the high north. Cold response. NATO flexes its muscles in the high north. Cold response, a large-scale NATO military exercise conducted biennially in Norway, is a testament to the alliance's commitment to collective defense in the Arctic and its ability to operate effectively in challenging conditions. The exercise involves thousands of troops, warships, aircraft, and other military equipment from NATO members and partner countries. Cold response focuses on training for high-intensity combat operations in a cold-weather environment, including amphibious landings, air assaults, and ground maneuvers. The exercise typically takes place in northern Norway, a region with harsh terrain, unpredictable weather, and limited infrastructure, providing a realistic training ground for Arctic warfare. Cold response serves multiple purposes for NATO. It allows the alliance to test its ability to rapidly deploy forces to the Arctic, operate effectively in extreme conditions, and coordinate operations among multiple nations. The exercise also sends a clear message to potential adversaries, particularly Russia, that NATO is prepared to defend its members' interests in the high north. The scale and complexity of cold response have increased in recent years, reflecting the growing importance of the Arctic in NATO's strategic calculations. The exercise demonstrates the alliance's commitment to maintaining a credible deterrent in the region and its ability to operate effectively alongside its Arctic partners. Balancing act, maintaining deterrence without provoking conflict. As the Arctic becomes increasingly militarized, NATO faces the delicate balancing act of maintaining a credible deterrent without provoking an arms race or escalating tensions with Russia. The alliance must strike a fine balance between demonstrating its resolve to defend its members' interests and avoiding actions that could be perceived as provocative or destabilizing. NATO's approach to the Arctic is based on the principle of cooperative security, which emphasizes dialogue, transparency, and confidence-building measures to manage tensions and prevent misunderstandings. The alliance regularly engages with Russia through diplomatic channels, military-to-military contacts, and the Arctic Council, a forum for intergovernmental cooperation among the 8 Arctic states. At the same time, NATO is strengthening its military capabilities in the Arctic to deter potential aggression and reassure its members in the region. This includes increasing its presence in the high north, conducting more frequent military exercises, and developing new capabilities for operating in the Arctic environment. NATO's challenge is to strike the right balance between these two competing imperatives, deterring aggression without provoking it. The alliance must maintain a credible deterrent while avoiding actions that could lead to an escalation of tensions or an arms race in the Arctic. This will require careful diplomacy, measured military deployments, and a commitment to dialogue and cooperation with Russia. China's Arctic ambitions, a new player on the frozen chessboard. China has emerged as a significant player in the Arctic, driven by economic interests and strategic considerations. Declaring itself a near-Arctic state, China aims to secure its place at the Arctic table. China's ambitions include scientific research, economic development, and a growing military presence. The country has invested in icebreakers, research stations, and partnerships with Arctic nations. These efforts aim to access resources, capitalize on shipping routes, and influence regional governance. China's Arctic engagement has not gone unnoticed. Western nations, especially the US, view China's presence as a potential challenge. Some fear an Arctic Cold War, with China aligning with Russia. China's role in the Arctic will impact the region and global geopolitics. The Polar Silk Road, China's vision for Arctic trade and connectivity. Central to China's Arctic ambitions is the concept of a Polar Silk Road, an extension of its Belt and Road Initiative. It envisions ports, railways, and pipelines connecting China to Europe and North America via the Arctic Ocean. Melting sea ice opens new passages like the Northern Sea Route and Northwest Passage. These routes could reduce shipping times and costs, making them attractive to China. The Polar Silk Road enhances trade connectivity and secures new markets. Russia supports the initiative to develop its Arctic regions and strengthen ties with China. Icebreakers and research stations, building blocks of China's Arctic presence. China has been steadily building up its presence in the Arctic, investing in key assets like icebreakers and research stations that provide a tangible footprint in the region and support its scientific, economic, and strategic interests. These investments are a clear indication of China's long-term commitment to the Arctic and its desire to be a major player in shaping the region's future. China's icebreaker fleet, though still modest compared to Russia's, has been steadily expanding in recent years. The country currently operates 2 icebreakers, the Shuilong or Snow Dragon, and the Shuilong 2, both capable of operating in heavy ice conditions. These icebreakers are used for scientific research, logistical support, and search and rescue operations in the Arctic. In addition to icebreakers, China has established several research stations in the Arctic, both on land and at sea. These stations conduct a wide range of scientific research, including studies on climate change, marine biology, and geology. The data collected by these stations enhances China's understanding of the Arctic environment and supports its economic and strategic interests in the region. These investments in icebreakers and research stations are providing China with the capabilities and infrastructure it needs to operate independently in the Arctic, conduct scientific research, and support its growing economic and strategic interests in the region. The Dragon's Arctic fleet expanding capabilities for a growing role. While China's current icebreaker fleet is dwarfed by Russia's, Beijing is making strides in expanding its capabilities. The country is investing heavily in research and development, shipbuilding, and training programs. Beyond its 2 existing icebreakers, China is constructing a new generation of polar research vessels and icebreakers. These include a new heavy-duty icebreaker capable of breaking through ice up to 3 meters thick. Scientific diplomacy, China's soft power play in the Arctic. Alongside its investments in icebreakers and research stations, China has been actively engaging in scientific diplomacy in the Arctic, utilizing research collaborations, data sharing, and educational exchanges to build relationships with Arctic nations and enhance its influence in the region. This soft power approach is a key element of China's broader Arctic strategy, aiming to position itself as a responsible stakeholder and build trust with other Arctic actors. China has signed scientific cooperation agreements with several Arctic countries, including Russia, Iceland, and Finland, facilitating joint research projects, data sharing, and exchanges of scientists and students. These collaborations allow China to access valuable Arctic research data, expertise, and infrastructure, while also fostering goodwill, and building relationships with Arctic nations. Furthermore, China has been actively participating in Arctic research organizations and forums, such as the Arctic Council, the International Arctic Science Committee, and the University of the Arctic. This engagement in multilateral forums allows China to contribute to discussions on Arctic governance, share its perspectives on key issues, and demonstrate its willingness to cooperate on matters of common interest. China's scientific diplomacy in the Arctic is a strategic investment in soft power, aimed at building trust, fostering goodwill, and enhancing its influence in the region. It is a long-term strategy that complements China's other Arctic endeavors, such as its infrastructure investments and icebreaker fleet expansion. While China emphasizes its commitment to scientific research and environmental protection in the Arctic, its interest in the region's vast, untapped natural resources is undeniable. The Arctic is estimated to hold significant reserves of oil, natural gas, minerals, and fish stocks, resources that hold immense economic value for a rapidly developing nation like China. China's energy demands are immense, and securing access to new sources of oil and gas is a strategic priority. The Arctic's potential as a major energy producer has not escaped China's attention, and the country has been actively exploring opportunities to invest in Arctic energy projects, both independently and in partnership with other countries. Beyond hydrocarbons, China is also interested in the Arctic's mineral wealth. The region is believed to hold significant deposits of rare earth elements, crucial components in many high-tech products, including smartphones, electric vehicles, and wind turbines. China currently dominates the global rare earths market, and securing access to Arctic sources would further strengthen its position. China's interest in Arctic resources is a significant driver of its engagement in the region. While the country emphasizes its commitment to sustainable development and environmental protection, its pursuit of these resources could have significant implications for the Arctic environment and the delicate balance of power in the region. A cornerstone of China's Arctic strategy is its burgeoning partnership with Russia, a collaboration driven by shared interests in developing the Arctic's economic potential, countering Western influence, and reshaping the geopolitical landscape. This partnership has manifested in joint ventures, infrastructure projects, and increased military cooperation in the Arctic. The centerpiece of China and Russia's Arctic partnership is their collaboration on the development of the Northern Sea Route. China sees the NSR as a key element of its Polar Silk Road, while Russia views it as an opportunity to unlock the economic potential of its Arctic regions. The two countries have signed agreements to jointly develop infrastructure along the NSR, including ports, icebreakers, and navigation systems. Beyond the NSR, China and Russia have also engaged in joint energy projects in the Arctic, with Chinese companies investing in Russian oil and gas fields. These investments provide China with access to new energy sources, while Russia benefits from Chinese capital and technology. The growing strategic partnership between China and Russia in the Arctic has raised concerns among some Western nations, who view it as a potential challenge to the existing rules-based order in the region. However, both China and Russia maintain that their cooperation is not directed against any third party and is aimed at promoting peace, stability, and sustainable development in the Arctic. As its presence in the Arctic grows, China faces the delicate task of navigating the complex web of international law, institutions, and competing national interests that govern the region. China has adopted a cautious approach to Arctic governance, emphasizing its commitment to existing treaties and its desire to be a responsible stakeholder in the region. A key element of China's approach is its recognition of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea as the legal framework governing maritime activities, including in the Arctic Ocean. China has also expressed its support for the Arctic Council, the leading intergovernmental forum for addressing Arctic issues, and has actively participated in its work as an observer state. However, China has also been assertive in defending its interests in the Arctic, particularly in response to what it perceives as attempts to exclude it from decision-making processes. China has pushed back against calls for a NATO for the Arctic, and has argued for a more inclusive approach to Arctic governance that recognizes the interests of non-Arctic states. China's approach to Arctic governance is a balancing act between its desire to be seen as a responsible stakeholder and its determination to secure its interests in the region. How China navigates this balancing act will have significant implications for the future of Arctic governance and the balance of power in the region. The future of China in the Arctic: partner, competitor, or challenger? China's emergence in the Arctic raises questions about its long-term intentions. Will China be a cooperative partner, a responsible competitor, or a disruptive challenger? The answer depends on China's priorities, relationships, and climate change. China seeks a stable Arctic for its economic and strategic goals. Cooperation and diplomacy will be key, but China's assertiveness could lead to competition and tension. The future of China in the Arctic is uncertain. Choices made by China and Arctic actors will shape the region's future. Antarctica, the frozen continent, awakens. Antarctica, the southernmost continent, cloaked in ice and shrouded in perpetual winter, has long been a realm of scientific exploration, international cooperation, and awe-inspiring natural beauty. Yet, beneath its pristine facade, a new era is dawning, one marked by growing geopolitical competition, resource anxieties, and the looming specter of climate change. For decades, Antarctica has been governed by the Antarctic Treaty System, a remarkable feat of international diplomacy that has preserved the continent as a zone of peace, scientific research, and international collaboration. However, the treaty's foundations are being tested as never before by a confluence of factors that threaten to unravel this fragile equilibrium. The melting of Antarctic ice sheets, a consequence of accelerating global warming, is unlocking new possibilities and perils. New shipping routes are emerging, potentially shortening transit times and reshaping global trade patterns. Vast reserves of oil, natural gas, and minerals, long locked beneath the ice, are becoming increasingly accessible, fueling resource anxieties and territorial disputes. As the geopolitical temperature rises, nations are increasingly viewing Antarctica through a strategic lens, bolstering their presence, asserting their claims, and eyeing the continent's untapped potential with a mix of anticipation and apprehension. The future of Antarctica, once a beacon of international cooperation, hangs in the balance, a test of global governance in an era of unprecedented change. A treaty on thin ice, climate change, and the Antarctic Treaty System. The Antarctic Treaty System, established in 1959, has preserved Antarctica as a zone of peace, scientific cooperation, and environmental protection. However, climate change and geopolitical competition challenge its future effectiveness. China's Antarctic footprint, expanding presence, growing influence. China has rapidly expanded its presence in Antarctica, establishing 5 research stations and investing in infrastructure. This growth has raised concerns among Western nations about China's intentions and the balance of power in the region. The Kunlun Station, China's gateway to the Antarctic interior. Kunlun Station, completed in 2009, is China's flagship research facility in Antarctica, located at Dome. Despite harsh conditions, it enables cutting-edge research in fields like astronomy and glaciology. Russia's Antarctic legacy, from Soviet exploration to modern ambitions. Russia has a long history of Antarctic exploration, dating back to the Soviet era. Recently, Russia has renewed its interest in Antarctica, upgrading research stations and asserting its territorial claims. The Vostok Lake Enigma, Subglacial Mysteries and Geopolitical Intrigue. Lake Vostok, discovered in the 1990s, is a subglacial lake offering insights into ancient life forms. Its exploration has raised geopolitical sensitivities and environmental concerns. Resource temptations, the allure of Antarctica's untapped wealth. Antarctica is believed to hold vast reserves of natural resources, including oil, gas, and minerals. The Antarctic Treaty System's prohibition on mineral exploitation is being tested by growing resource demands. The specter of conflict. Can Antarctica's peace be preserved? Geopolitical competition, resource anxieties, and climate change threaten Antarctica's peace. The Antarctic Treaty System faces unprecedented challenges in managing these pressures. The future of Antarctica hangs in the balance, a microcosm of the broader challenges facing global governance. Climate change, geopolitical competition, and technological advances are transforming the continent. Strengthening the Antarctic Treaty System is crucial to ensuring its continued relevance. From the icy plains of the Arctic to the remote reaches of Antarctica, the polar regions are undergoing a dramatic transformation. Melting ice caps are unlocking new possibilities and perils, reshaping the geopolitical landscape. The choices nations make will determine the fate of these regions and have profound consequences for the planet. The Arctic, once a frozen wasteland, is now a cauldron of geopolitical competition. Melting ice caps are opening new shipping lanes, revolutionizing global trade and shifting power balances. Nations are maneuvering for advantage, heightening the risk of miscalculation and escalation. The Antarctic paradox: fragile peace in a warming world. Antarctica, a continent of ice and snow, stands in stark contrast to the geopolitical dynamism unfolding in the Arctic. Governed by the Antarctic Treaty System, Antarctica has been a remarkable success story of international cooperation. However, the future of Antarctica is far from certain. Climate change is altering the continent at an alarming rate. The geopolitical landscape has shifted significantly since the treaty's inception. Antarctica stands as a paradox, a continent of peace and cooperation facing unprecedented challenges. The global stakes: climate change and the future of geopolitics. The geopolitical competition in the polar regions is a harbinger of broader global challenges. Climate change is a global threat with profound implications for international security and economic development. Melting ice caps contribute to rising sea levels, threatening coastal communities. It leads to extreme weather events like hurricanes, floods, and droughts. These changes displace people, disrupt agriculture, and fuel conflict. The geopolitical implications of climate change are profound. It requires a global response prioritizing cooperation and sustainability. The imperative of cooperation: charting a course for a sustainable future. Climate change and geopolitical competition highlight the interconnectedness of our planet. Cooperation and sustainability are key to our future. The Antarctic Treaty System models international cooperation. Diplomacy and dialogue can prevail despite tensions. The Arctic presents opportunities for cooperation. The Arctic Council promotes dialogue and sustainable development. Polar regions are now central to global affairs. The call to action: safeguarding the poles, protecting our planet. The fate of the polar regions is inextricably linked to the fate of our planet. The time for complacency is over. The time for action is now. We must act decisively to address the root causes of climate change, strengthen international cooperation and diplomacy. The Antarctic Treaty System offers a model for international cooperation. Empower indigenous communities, recognizing their traditional knowledge. The polar regions remind us of our planet's fragility and interconnectedness.